Adam, can you give us a brief background and tell us what you did?
3.5 years ago, we began to discuss the possibility of taking our kids overseas to do some kind of service, some kind of work where we could expand the worldview of our children. Goshen, Indiana is a small city of 35,000 people in sort of rural Midwest United States, and our kids didn't really have a whole lot of perspective of anything in the world beyond, kind of the American lifestyle. A house, 2 cars, 4 kids, school, sports, drama, choir, and,
Where did you go and why?
we went to Egypt. We spent 8 months living in Cairo. Our intention was to go for almost an entire year, but 8 months in, we had a coronavirus thing that everybody knows about came along, and we realized that the work we were doing was not really going to work. What we were doing, I'm a leadership coach. I've been doing that for over 10 years, and my wife was working at a small Christian school as an art teacher and teaching English for 7th grade with a variety of students, some of whom were English as a second language. So she had some interesting things to do in Egypt as well.
What about your kids? What specific impact do you feel like this trip has had, and any anecdote or little story?
Yeah, it was interesting. We had only been there maybe a month, and I was my older 2 kids were doing school online from the States, but I wanted them to get a feel for the Arabic language. And so I began to take them 2 or 3 days a week in the morning for a couple hours at a school where they teach Arabic as a second language for foreigners. And so my older boys, my teenagers, were going with me, and then we would walk a little bit together and stop at a kind of a street food stand where you get falafel and beans in a sandwich, super duper cheap. After that first month or so, my oldest son said, "Dad, I think you could kind of go to almost any country in the world, and within a few weeks you'd be able to, you'd figure your way around and know enough words to get some food, and you could do it." And that was a big hope that I had going, that it was really cool to see my son kind of get that within the first month, that you can travel and you don't have to be afraid that you don't speak the language. It's not that big a deal. I see that now, and that was great. That was really one of the biggest takeaways we were hoping for, was just the kind of idea that the world is not so small that you have to live your life in, the Midwest. If you can dream it, you can go there,
You have 4 children.
4 children, yeah. My youngest.
From your 9, your 12, and your 15-year-old, what do you think was the impact on each of them for that age?
So my kids have gone through a lot of transitions in their schooling, and we knew that was going to be a challenge, and might even to some extent almost like derail their learning for a little while, and that what they're learning experientially is far, far more important than what they're learning academically at this point. Going cross-culturally for, even if it's only 8 months, is a huge way to learn in a ways that a stable academic environment, which is great, would also never be able to teach them.
The question maybe that will be helpful for others is, was it worth it? And would you recommend that for somebody else, even with all of the changes and the difficulties you went through?
Yeah, I'm very happy that we did it. Even yesterday, as we looked at whether or not my second son will really be ready, get enough credits out of 9th grade from his online schooling to go into 10th grade. And my initial feeling was like, oh man, did we really fail him? Did we really, put him behind the 8 ball, especially the second one? But pretty quickly just reminded myself that no, we made this decision as a family, even in spite of what we're facing now, coming back and thinking about that. it is 100% worth doing when you hear your kids say something like, now I believe I could go anywhere in the world. Within a few weeks, I could survive. And that's, it's about teaching all your kids that you're not limited, because we know that there's possibilities that they could have dreams or calling to just about anywhere in the world. And if they aren't prepared to receive that as something that's even possible.
There's some good things in there, because I think for many, they're beginning to understand the idea of putting wings on the dreams and the callings of your kids.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it takes putting them in a little more difficult situation where they have to find their own resources. If they're believers, they really, for themselves, have to reach out to God, because they're in a place where they can't just retreat in their room and be comfortable. I think you put your finger on something really important there, because I know for all our kids, they now travel all around the world, and it's nothing. And it isn't so much giving them all this cultural experience as for me it is opening up the world to, if you are called or you want to do something, you know you can do it now.
You know, I know, Curtis, your book talks about getting together as a family and trying to discern that together and make a consensus decision whenever you can. But sometimes you just have to tell your kids, well, I'm sorry, we're doing this whether you like it or not. And I think, you know, for myself, having gone through that as a 13-year-old, I thank my parents for doing that. They expanded the world for me exponentially, almost infinitely, by taking us from rural Illinois to Congo. And if you have this fear of not knowing, like, just go find out.